Well, welcome to another one of our book club episodes. I'm here again, joined by Amrit Malhotra from Invicta Counseling in Ontario, Canada. Welcome again, Amrit.
Thank you.
So we're doing something a little bit different here today. Amrit and I have each chosen some children's books to share with our viewers. All of these books are available in our book library inside of our e-learning community. And we just thought we'd take a few minutes to go through some of our favorite parts about the books and just really generally share what's in each one of them and why we really enjoyed them. So interestingly, we each picked 3 books. And they all fit in, and they each fit into similar categories. So we each picked one that explains to children how life will look in 2 homes. We also each picked one that explores children's feelings after a divorce. And we each picked a workbook that can be done, parents can do with kids together, or some of them are for more older kids where they can do them by themselves. So I thought that was really interesting, and I thought it would be helpful today as we group them together into those categories. So let's start first by looking at the ones where the authors explore how life will look in 2 homes. So the one that I've chosen is called 2 Homes, and it's by Claire Masurel. And Amrit, do you want to hold up the one that you've chosen?
Sure. Dinosaurs Divorce?
Yeah, Dinosaurs Divorce, A Guide for Changing Families. Perfect. So we'll talk about the 2 homes first. So this one I found is for, and this is only my opinion only, is for really young children. So preschool, kindergarten, I'd say up to about age 7 or so. If you have a look at some of the words in it, so they're quite big words and big letters and lots of pictures. So I thought to myself that this would be a great book for young children to read this as they learn to read, and then they can read it on their own. And it's also a great book to keep on the bookshelf. They can pick it up. If they're young enough, they can just look at the pictures if they're pre-readers. The purpose behind the book was to be positive and constructive, and to explain divorce in a way that explores the uniqueness between 2 homes. I thought it was a great book for very young children to help them to understand what it's like to live in 2 homes. I picked the book because I love how it's really about everyday life, things that parents may not think to explain about how it's going to look between 2 homes, and that those are the everyday kinds of things that impact children as they're moving into 2 homes. I loved how vivid the illustrations are. That really, of course, helps with young readers to really be able to understand what the book is about, even without with either being read to by a parent or being able to sort of understand what's going on in the book before without even needing to read the words. Whose perspective did the book present? Of course, it presented the children's point of view, what they will experience as they move into 2 homes. So I just wanted to show a little bit about the book. So in here you can see, oh, the sun is really getting in the way. Here I am Alex. Daddy lives here. Sometimes I'm with daddy, and mommy lives there. Sometimes I'm with mommy. So, it's really explaining, trying to show that really vivid pictures and, just really explaining the everyday sort of what happens at each parent's home. So great book. It's called 2 Homes by Claire Masurel. You may want to have a look at it in our book library. You can order it on Amazon. So that was my first book. What about you, Amrit?
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. So I'm going to talk about Dinosaurs Divorce. This is a book that was written by Lori Krasny Brown and Marc Brown, and it's for children that are ages 4 to 8. great book because it deals with a lot of the emotions, living with parents in two different homes, dealing with some of the interactions that may take place between parents that may be stressed, and learning that there may be different rules in different households, how to kind of manage when the parents have recoupled and perhaps remarried. One thing that it did address in the book is that they use terms, like they have a terminology page, which kind of used some of the words that children might be exposed to and what they mean, like divorce words. Just something notable in here that they deal with custody, child custody, which is now parenting time as opposed to the custody here in Canada. And also they note alimony, which is spousal support. So there's just a couple of things that I kind of noticed that was a little bit different in this book in the Canadian realm. The first section also deals with mothers and fathers. That's how they note it. But divorce can also take place between two dads and two moms. So I just wanted to point that out. But it is really good. Again, beautiful graphics in here, almost like a cartoon style. They even have a section where they talk about where you may be dealing with a parent that's providing lots of toys and goodies and kind of acting like a Santa Claus, but they note here that you don't have to spend lots of money to have fun. So it's just some practical tips for the children. Sometimes with children regressing and maybe perhaps acting a little bit babyish because they're going through a lot of emotional turmoil. So it is a very helpful book to have for children. So I would recommend this.
Yeah, and that one was interesting, I found, because it is quite a long book, and it covers so many different aspects of separation and divorce, which can be a good thing, but it can also be an overwhelming thing. So it's not as much a pro or a con. It's more so just a comment that, it's one of those books that might want to be read in pieces a little bit.
Agreed. Yes.
Because of that. But the comic style, if you just want to hold it up for just a second to show our viewers, because the comic style, I know my 9-year-old is really into comics, especially. And so, when you're trying to pick books for your children and to try to help them to understand what they're going through with separation and divorce, that's why we wanted to talk to you about sort of the content of some of these, because we do have these books in our book library. And if you go on to any of these online book retailers or in these bookstores, there'll be a ton of different books. It's really hard to distinguish what ones are going to be helpful for my child. And so each of the ones that you and I picked were slightly different, or greatly different, I suppose you could say, because the book that I chose, there's a sentence on each page, very, very simplistic for very early readers, and yours got a similar message through, of course, much more in-depth of a message, but comic orientation and sort of just a different reader. And so you be mindful of thinking about your particular child, what would be good for them as they're going through.
Absolutely. Great point here. What I really love, I just want to draw your attention to this page here where they're actually showing that mom and dad are on the phone and there's some angry faces, right? They're maybe dealing with something that's a little bit difficult, and they're actually talking about it's important not to say that you have permission to one parent when you don't have permission. Right. So you're not splitting the parents. It deals with dealing with different rules in each other's homes, and that they may be different, but they're okay. Or feeling a little bit torn when you're dealing with a holiday, right, that's being celebrated in both homes. So there are some issues that are really, really pertinent, even just integrating with new friends, that your parents may be in new relationships or may be remarried, and there may be like half siblings or step siblings and having to share rooms, and all those practical matters are dealt with here. So it's really, really good. Some helpful tips in here. So,
and you could even read it sort of in parts, right? Where if that's not really the stage that you're at, you could read just part of it. And then when you get to those stages, it's sort of an all-in-one book almost, where you can read it, as you get to these various parts of the transition and the journey from one home into two.
And I think that's a really excellent point, Stephanie, because I think anytime you're showing a book to your child, you should read it first. You should scan it first and see if is this something that you would really like to share with your child? And maybe there are pieces that you want to just emphasize and go through a little bit. And perhaps if you're not in a new relationship, perhaps the latter half isn't something you want to share because maybe that would be too early for the child. So really kind of thinking about the timing and when you're sharing this book.
Yeah, no, very interesting. Okay, so let's go on to the workbooks that we each chose. So the workbook that I chose is a 2-part workbook. One is for younger children, one is for teens. So the ones that I chose, and I'll just hold them up here. So it's called the Divorce Workbook for Children and the Divorce Workbook for Teens. And the author is Lisa Schab. And Amrit, did you want to hold up the one that you chose?
Sure.
I've got 2 shorter ones. You've got the big one.
I do. So this one's Helping Your Kids Cope with Divorce, the Sandcastle's Way by Gary Neuman and Patricia Romanowski.
So we'll talk about the divorce workbook for children and for teens. So this one, I would say that the one that's for children, my view would be it would be for around ages 4 or 5, all the way up to around ages 11. Some of the activities are really great for younger kids, and some of them are designed for a little bit of older kids. But as Amrit said a moment ago, it's a really good idea. There's a message to the parents at the beginning, and it's a really good idea to go through and you can sort of pick and choose as to what would be most appropriate given the emotion that your child is feeling or the thing that you think that your child needs to work through or talk through. And so of course the one for teens is well, the age group is for teens, so age 12, 13 and up. And interestingly, I was asking my daughter just last night, because of course I ask my children about all these things and they know all about, they've read all the children's divorce books and I've asked them their opinion of them and all of that sort of thing. And so I was asking her, she's 11, and I was asking her last night, I said, read through some of, the table of contents. And do you think that this would be something for your age group? She's right on that cusp, right? She's 11. So I thought, is it a little bit young for her, or is it about right? And she's, no, that would be a really good book, right? As far as, because of course it goes, and we'll talk about it in a moment, it goes into talking about feelings and all of this sort of thing. And so I thought it was really interesting. There are kids that are going to be on the cusp. And so the age group is really just my own categorization of what would be appropriate for these books. But of course you have to decide based on your children's age and stage of development. So purpose behind the book. So the children's workbook is the one to have a guided discussion with children about all different aspects of divorce. So I thought it would be helpful just to go through some of the different activities. So it's divided up into a number of different activities here. So I'll just sort of summarize it a little bit. So activity 1 through 9 is about the actual moving into 2 homes. So it's practical issues about life changes. And then activity 10 through 23 is more about feelings and how to get your feelings out and how are you feeling about certain things, and some exercises around that. So I just wanted to actually illustrate or to pick out a few parts of it, of the book. I had put some sticky notes. So for example, activity number 8. So married or divorced, your parents take care of you. So it's kind of divided up here into what you need to know. And then there's a little story. And then here there's an activity. So this one in particular says, the children in the pictures below are worried about how they will be taken care of when their parents get divorced. Color the thought balloons green if they describe worry you've had too. Color the thought balloons red if they describe the things you are not worried about. And so, that's sort of for the younger kids. Parents can read those bubbles to them, or the kids can read them themselves, and then they can use that as an activity. And it's really just a way to sort of get out their feelings. And then it goes on into more to do. And so this is really throughout the whole book. There's sort of more visual exercises, and then there's more of the written stuff. And of course, depending on the kids' ages, that could be something that, the parents would go through with the kids and write themselves, or write for the kids, or the kids can write themselves. Which other one did I take the Post-it note out? Using your thoughts to cope with your feelings, activity 22, talking about happy face and sad face. then there's some sad feelings, and it asks you to draw or to write out what would be the way to make that a happy feeling. And so I thought that was quite an interesting one. And this one, Amrit, you were mentioning about Dinosaurs Divorce goes into this a little bit about different houses and different rules. So this is activity 25 and talking about helping kids to assess, what's happening in each of our households. One household does it this way and the other household does it that way. And where are the differences, and how can we reconcile the fact that it's okay that we do things differently in different homes. And the last one that I had pointed out was activity 27 was transition time. And of course, this is one of those times for kids that is so difficult. Is one of the most stressful times for kids is transitioning between homes, trying to get into the rules in one home or the other, or if there's conflict between the parents, there's some stress involved, or remembering to pack everything you want for the other parent's home and that sort of thing. So I just thought that I wanted to point out some really interesting parts that I thought were really helpful and really exemplified what is in this particular book. So then going on to the divorce workbook for teens. So this is more of a one that the teens can do on their own, and I picked out one of them. So of course, this is also broken up into activities. So in each activity, there's a story to explain the concept, similar to the kids one, and then followed by a couple of activities. So some of them are reading, writing, sketching, or assessing their situation to kind of work through the feelings that's going on. And it's really designed for teens to do on their own. Of course, that's the stage in their life where they are more independent and they want to do things on their own. So being able to do some self-exploration in a healthy way of how you're feeling and to really normalize some of these things. And it does also suggest, talking to an adult about how you're feeling and making sure that you're able to process those emotions that you're getting out in this workbook. I found it really interesting. So again, it goes through all of these various activities here. I really appreciated activity number 33 through 38 talks about the kids' rights. And, your right to love both parents, your right to remain separate from parental problems. So your right to remain a teen or a kid, so those things I think are really helpful to explore for children, because so often they get so, enmeshed in the parental issues, especially with their ages. Sometimes parents unfortunately lean on their children. And so, the ability to really normalize what's going on and to be able to understand what's the best for you and yourself as you're going through this. And I really feel like this is about empowering teens. And that's so important as they're going through a time in their life where they can't understand always what's happening around them. And anyway, I just had picked out one I thought was really good. Well, they're all great, but activity number 5 was about fear. This is, of course, the different activities, they're about figuring out how you're feeling about different things. So one of them was the following list describes some common fears that many teens experience when their parents get divorced. Put a check mark next to any fears you've experienced yourself. And so, it goes through a whole list and it asks you to check those off. And I think that's really important to normalize that these are some things that, other people also feel, and I can walk through some of these emotions and get help for them. Lastly, I'll just say why I picked these books. I love that it was a combination approach within the workbook. So there's a combination between activities and stories and things to do on your own, plus things to do with a parent or with an adult. And it's really a great way to get feelings out in an active way. And we can really pick through what we think kids are going through, or we can ask kids what they're going through, and we can work on those specific activities. So it's not something, obviously, that you would go through from activity 1 through 40 and go through all of them in order. You can pick and choose, and I think that's really helpful to be able to break it down. You can spend 20 minutes, go through one activity one night, and a few nights later or a few weeks later, you can go through another activity based on need. So I really appreciated these workbooks.
It's great, Stephanie. Awesome. So I'll talk a little bit about helping your kids cope with divorce, the Sandcastle's way. So you can
Mhm.
see this is quite encyclopedic in nature. Um, so it's full, chock full of great information. I mean, right on the front, it says buy 2 copies and give one to your husband. For once, you'll be reading from the same page. That was a comment by the Washington Post. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of truth to that, because if both parents are getting information from the same source and they're able to work through some of these things with the children, it can only be beneficial, right? So they cover so many things in here. They provide great information about how children experience divorce, building a co-parent relationship, what it's like for children, and ways parents can help children at each age. What's wonderful is that they break it down from infant
Mhm.
to toddler, preschoolers, ages 6 to 8, 9 to 12, and then a teenager from 13 to 17, because they're going to be unique issues depending on their age group, the ages and stages as we speak about.
Mhm.
Recognizing one's past issues. Let's say if you were a child of divorce yourself, and how that may be impacting how you're experiencing this now as a person actually going through the divorce and having to care for your children, the impact of domestic violence, disclosure about divorce, and the impact when siblings are separated as well through this process. Having to say goodbye to one parent as you transition from one home to the other, um, dealing with custody and visitation or parenting time, divorce-related changes, including introduction of new partners when dating or announcing a remarriage. So these are all really significant issues that are raised in this book. So I do feel that it's really well done. It gives some great examples. On page 46, they have a great page, 5 steps of communication. They have a nice chart here. It deals with how you need to communicate your point in clear language, empathizing with your child, acknowledging and describing how it will affect your child, and anticipating the questions you're reasonably sure your child will have, and inviting further questions and answer them clearly. So it kind of gives you a little bit of a guide, which I think is really, really useful. So it is a great reference book. Again, it's quite thick. And I
Mhm.
think reading the particular section that is relevant at the time that you're going through would be most helpful. It's something that you could
Mhm.
keep as a guide and flip to it when you're running into difficulties. But it gives you some activities as well as some questions and answers. It's easy to follow. There's a wealth of information. Um, on pages 277 and 278, they actually have some suggested visitation schedules and basic recommendations based on ages, dividing it up by parenting skills and outstanding parenting skills that maybe need to be learned, and some additional notes for guidance. So again, that may be very useful to have just as a guideline. Um, the final point that I just want to read this point, because I
Mhm.
thought it was written beautifully on page 417. It says, think of the sandcastles children. Think of the sandcastles children build so carefully, filling pails with water and sand. They create these monuments, then watch as they're washed away. They pause, then start the process all over again. Some castles will topple, others will stand. But what matters is that the children built them, crude but magical testaments to the optimism, resilience, and tenacity that all children
Mhm.
possess, and that any parent can teach her child to use in learning to grow with, not in spite of a divorce.
Mhm.
I just thought it was beautifully written. So I do think these tools are essential to have. Often parents are left with they're not knowing what to do, and this may be a helpful guide.
Hmm. Yeah, and as you said, it is really an encyclopedia, but I really appreciate that it's got all the age groups in it. And so,
Yes.
because most families, will have a lot of families will have multiple children and there'll be all different age groups. And so you've got one reference guide that really is able to span across whatever your children are going through. And it is a bit of a workbook as well as a talk, things to talk about with your kids. So it really is that all encompassing book. Yeah, as you
Yes.
said, it's nice and thick, but it's really thick. It's a good
It
thing and
is.
it's a
It is.
daunting thing. Yeah, yeah. And I
Yeah.
believe as well that it's also based on an actual program in the state done by Gary Neuman as an
Mhm.
in-person kind of it's like seminar, but intensive, like an institute sort of thing where children can come to it. I
Mhm.
think I shouldn't be maybe on video saying what I think it is, but I seem to recall because I've looked into that Sandcastles program. And so this book is
Mhm.
really nice because it really brings to the divorcing person without having to go to an institute. It really brings it home to be able to work on it with all children going through divorce.
Yes, absolutely.
So, all right. So finally, we have our feelings book. So let's see which ones we have done. So I've got The Incredible Shrinking Girl, Divorce Story, and this is by Julie Verner. And Amrit, do you want to hold yours up?
Sure. Okay, here we go. Standing on My Own 2 Feet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yep.
this is written by Tamara Schmitz.
Mm-hmm. Two of my very favorite books for sure. And again, all of these are available in our book library if anyone's interested in having a look through those. So for the Incredible Shrinking Girl, I thought, as far as the age group is concerned, that this was a really wide age group. So this could be anywhere from preschool, I thought, all the way up until ages 11 or 12. And I can say that because I've tested it on my children, and my children are ages 9, 10, and 11. And, you know, I have them read these kind of things and give me their feedback and whatnot. And it was really meaningful to my 9-year-old who was reading through it and really found some meaningful passages in it. And so I don't think that it's just for the younger children. The purpose behind the book is to explain the importance of kids getting their feelings out, and it really normalizes how kids are feeling, and that it's okay to feel like you're bottling things up as long as you get the right support, and it explains what happens when you do get that those feelings out. I picked this book because I love how it's such a simple story for the kids to absorb. There's just one really simple message, main message: don't hold in your feelings. And it describes the impact of holding in one's feelings. And so just very briefly, it goes through the story of a child who feels very, very small and can't figure out why. And when she's encouraged to get her feelings out, then that's when she grows really, really big. Back to normal size. And so I thought that I would take an opportunity just to sort of read the part in the book where Penny is the little girl's name, where she realizes that it's important for her to get her feelings out. Mrs. Bennett explained to Penny, when your parents decided they couldn't be married anymore, it was an adult decision with adult reasons. That's their divorce story. But you have a divorce story too. And then it goes on about what Penny's divorce story could be, and that, you know, she can get her feelings out and explain her story in her way. And it's not just about her parents' story. And so I really like that. And that was one of my kids' favorite. I'm going to leave it as a cliffhanger and let people read the rest of the story themselves. But that was my kids' favorite part of that book. The perspective that the book presents is, of course, the kids' perspective, not the parents' perspective. And I really appreciate in this book that it is only the kids' perspective. So it's not about the adults or the parents or how they're feeling. It really keeps the focus on the kids. And we do have an interview at Up a Notch Learning with Julie Verner, the author of this book, where we go through more about the importance of kids getting their feelings out and the inspiration for her writing this book and having the illustrations done. It's quite a nice story if you want to head on over to our interview series with Julie. All right. So Amrit, how about you?
Okay, great. Okay, here we go. Once again, Standing on My Own 2 Feet. Okay, by Tamara Schmitz. Beautifully colorful book. The beginning says mom and dad love, and then there's a spot for the name of the child, unconditionally, no matter what. I mean, it could be dad and dad or mom and mom. I just want to make that point as well. But again, beautiful graphics that just show, you know, mom and dad's, there's mom's house, and over here, there's dad's house. It's just, you can see the font is rather large. It's for little kids, ages 4 to 6. It's a book that's just full of affirmations, right? Just allowing the child to know that they can feel empowered and that they're strong, that they're loved. They have an imagery of a caterpillar and then a butterfly, which I thought was really great, just kind of showing the transition. Okay, like see, it says even when we are apart, we can look outside our windows and enjoy the same moon, just so that they can feel that connection. It's got simple concepts, important concepts, and done in a simple way, right, for the children. So it's really, really good. Just reassuring the child that the children are loved by their parents and that the divorce is not their fault. Really, that's the salient message in all of this. And so it is a good book for a young child, and it's important for all parents to review books, as I mentioned before, prior to sharing with the child, because it is the child's reality after all, and they may be taking a different thing away when they take a look at a book. So it's really important to talk about, well, what does it mean to them when they look at these pictures, right? And chose the book because it was simply meaningful, colorful, bright. And it may stimulate that dialogue between the parent and child when they have this kind of book as a beginning point. So yeah, it's I thought it was good.
Yeah.
It just shows, interaction with both mom and dad doing different things, like caregiving roles.
So it'd be for a similar age group to this Two Homes, right? Really,
yes,
vivid pictures, illustrations, and the words are very simple, but they get the message across, and that's for that age group. So
yes,
really goes well together. Okay, well, everyone, if everyone wants to go head on over to our book library and check out those books, and you might get even more of a description through the Amazon links that we've got there for you to check out those books if they're meaningful to you or to your kids. You may want to check them out to help them through the stage that they're going through as they go through their journey into Two Homes. So thank you once again for joining us, Amrit, and to all of our viewers, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.